Hey everyone, Professor August here, and today I'm going to be talking about Fundamentally by Nussaibah Younis. It was published in 2025, so let's get into it. I was so happy to read this book. When I first read the synopsis a few months ago, I thought, I don't know how this book is going to go. It's about a woman who leaves London to go to Baghdad and tries to de-radicalize Islamic or like Islamic State ISIS brides, and it's meant to be a comedy. So it's like, okay, let's see how this goes. I got it. I started reading it, and within, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 pages, I just thought it was hilarious. Like, the main character, her name is Nadia, and just she's just hilarious because you get her internal monologue with her external monologue side by side, so like you see what she's saying versus what she's thinking. And I think it was like in the first couple of chapters, she and her colleagues, she's an academic, so she's teaching at a college in London, and um, they're all just like waiting for the old faculty to die so they could take one of the full-time positions. And I'm reading it just laughing out loud because it is so true, like what part-time faculty do. We just sort of like wait around until a full-time position opens up. Kind of morbid, but it's the reality. Anyways, it's super good. I really, really enjoyed it. It's so funny. This book follows Nadia, the main character, and I was trying to figure out like what's a word I could use to describe what this book is about. Like, is it family? Is it forgiveness? Is it love? It's really hard to pin this book down because there's just so much that's going on. Nadia is an academic. She is going through a major breakup. She and her girlfriend break up. Her girlfriend leaves her, and then as an academic, she writes this paper about de-radicalizing ISIS brides. So of course the UN comes calling and gives her a job, and she's totally unprepared for this job. She leaves, like she takes a sabbatical from her job in as a professor and moves to Baghdad to set up this program called UNDA, like the, I don't know, UN de-radicalization something something. And she's just so ill prepared for this. There were like parts of the book reminded me so much of the TV show Veep on HBO, where it's just a bunch of people who are doing their jobs really poorly. They don't really know what's going on, but they have a lot of power to do their jobs, but they keep getting like banging their heads against a bureaucratic brick wall. And that's what Nadia finds herself, the situation she finds herself in. So she gets to Baghdad, immediately meets a guy named Tom, who is just like a brick wall of a man, and she starts dating him. He, like in my head, he sounds like Sarah Millican, the comedian. She's like, like, all right, pet. Okay, I can't do accents, but like, I guess he's Geordie, so he has this like particular accent. Um, and then God, like he helps her out. Like he kind of becomes her security guard. And then she meets all of the people she works with at the UN, and they're all terrible, but also really charming and nice. And there wasn't a character among her crew of people in Baghdad that I disliked. They were all just like they all had their own motives for doing the job and behaving a particular way. So, like in her little crew of people that she's working with, there's Cherie, who is an Australian, I don't know, like bleeding heart liberal who just wants to put the world, like correct the world. And she is just so focused on her way of doing things. And there's Pierre, who is a like gay, Nepo baby whose dad was an ambassador. And so I don't know, he just feels like he should have had Nadia's job. And Charles is this South African dude who's married and has his own family back home, but he pretends they don't exist so he can screw around at their base in Baghdad. It's just like there are all these people who are living and doing their own things. Anyways, so she sets up this organization to de-radicalize ISIS brides, and part of the process is to go visit one of these camps where ISIS brides are being held. A lot of them are women who like they're Western European or, like white European women who ended up being tricked to go to join the ISIS fighters. And as soon as they get there, they get married and impregnated and then like left behind once the fighting happens and their husbands all die. And so these women are, I mean, it's not funny, but like, because it's like, I know I'm laughing, but it's such a tragic reality that actually happened. But the way the writer writes this, the way the author writes this, is kind of genius. It is so irreverent and so funny. Anyways, she meets all these characters. One of them is named Sarah, and Sarah is this teenager who is like tricked. I guess tricked. That's debatable. She ends up in ISIS territory. She becomes an ISIS bride, and she is just like Nadia. Sarah is a Londoner. She has this really thick accent, really foul mouthed character, but she is a fundamentalist. Like, she truly believes in a particular way of life that these like ISIS fundamentalists gave her, and like Nadia feels like Sarah has been brainwashed. But as the book progresses, you come to find out that Nadia and Sarah are really similar to one another. Um, like, they might, like, on paper they kind of seem different, but the way that they behave and the way that they hold on to their core beliefs is so similar to one another, even though they seem super different from one another. So Nadia thinks that Sarah is a fundamentalist. Sarah thinks Nadia is a fundamentalist. Not going to give it away, but um, this sort of like brown woman savior that Nadia is portraying doesn't really work out for her. She comes to realize a lot of things about herself and about some of these women that she's trying to help out. So it's a really interesting dynamic that the author sets up for us. Along the way, one of the characters, who I think is probably my favorite, was Sheikh Jason of Berkeley, California. I live very close to Berkeley, and the way he was written, sadly, seems so true to reality. I know it's like an exaggerated version of some of these Muslim converts, but usually when I meet Muslim converts, it's like one of two versions. It's either the super radical, like everything is about religion as if they're making up time for not having been Muslim before, or it's Sheikh Jason, who is like, everything is sunshine and rainbows and we all have to kumbaya, which at a certain point you just want to throw a Bible at their face and say, like, snap out of it. So he is just like, I don't know. He was really endearing and frustrating, and I liked him as a character. Super out of his depth. He has no idea what's going on, but he tries his darndest. Anyways, the book is very, very good. I very much enjoyed it. So I was really concerned. I don't know, concerned is the wrong word. I didn't see how this was going to be a funny book, and then when I started reading it, it was very clear early on that it was going to be just a raucous read, and it's very British. The Brits like to just take the piss out of everything, and as an American, I can see how some Americans might read this and say, "Oh, it's just like too irreverent," and there are certain things that you ought not joke about because there are like these are traumatic situations that the author writes about. Rape, incest, well, not incest, maybe incest a little bit, a lot of like radical things that we saw in the news. And I grew up in the early 2000s, so the Iraq war, the Afghan war, these were all things that were constantly on the news, and they just were not funny. But this book, gotta say, it was kind of genius the way that it was written. You can tell that the author is so intimately familiar with the subject matter. And it wasn't until after I finished reading the book, there's an author's note towards the end that explains who the author is and what she's done, what her career is like, and why she chose to write the book that the way that she did. And all of that shows through because it's clear that the author is so familiar with the processes of the United Nations and these types of programs, but she's kind of dumbed it down so that a layperson like myself can read the book and just like understand what's happening and see the I don't know, the human part of the dysfunction within organizations like the United Nations. On a personal note, years and years ago, I worked as a translator, um, and I would take Americans overseas to help them with their linguistic training while they were going to base camps in Central Asia. This was while we were at war in Afghanistan, and it was not a fun job. So, like a lot of this rang true because I kind of saw some of this firsthand, especially just the people living and operating on a daily basis and being in close quarters with one another and the drama that just comes about because people are bored. So like all of that rang true. Also, these types of jobs are thankless jobs. Like, they're boring and they really don't pay off a lot of the time. But when I was doing that job, if anybody asked me, I would have said like, "Oh, it's so fulfilling. I love this job. I get so much out of it." No, I hated it. Like, that's why I'm not doing it anymore. It was a terrible job. And that's kind of how it seems with Nadia towards the end of the book. She's like, there's only so much we can do before like you got to give up. Like, once people don't want your help anymore, or you just realize like you have to put your own mental health first. You just have to stop. Like, be grateful for what you were able to accomplish and then move on. So I think that was a really nicely done, like it was nicely done the way that the author portrays this, because it doesn't make a United Nations job seem super glamorous, even though from the outside it may seem like it is. Um, they're difficult jobs, and so like kudos to the people who are doing them, because I certainly won't be doing it anymore ever again. Like ever. Never say never, but I'm saying never ever. Anyways, it's a fabulous book. If you want to read it, I've put the publisher's information in the description box. Go buy a copy. If you've read it, let me know what you think. Otherwise, have a lovely day, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.
Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe below. Catch you in the next video.